So basically, Clifton was the originator, and it's also called the Clifton StrengthsFinder, and he was what's called the father of strength psychology. But this quote, and I won't read it out verbatim, basically leaders and successful people are self-aware, they know their strengths and they play to their strengths. They know what tools to use. So you can get people as disparate as Gandhi through to Churchill, completely different types of people, massively different strengths, but each of them use their strengths to great effect, right? So no leaders or no group of characteristics describes all leaders. There's no magic set. People lead in different ways and succeed in different ways. So I just thought that was a nice quote. We'll first touch on talent. So everybody has talent. Sometimes you may look around and not think so, but everyone does have talent. And examples of talent include, say, expertly organising projects. You know those people who can put together the Gantt chart, put together the work breakdown structure, and you kind of procrastinate a bit, that kind of stuff, but they just do it in their sleep, right? That's a natural kind of thing that you're born with. It's innate. Easily influencing others is a good one. So some people have this natural ability to coerce and influence, not necessarily manipulate. And some people don't so much. I mean, this is just things we're kind of born with. Effectively solving complex problems. You know, everyone who's in the engineering world can do good problem solving. But some people have a kind of a flair for it. They're driven to do it. They're enthused, they're excited about it. And that adds to their success. And even something as odd as consistently having a positive outlook in life. That doesn't sound like a talent that will get a project done. But you can imagine, say, in one of these big escalations, you know, where the chips are down and it's real tough times, you need a few people in there who have a natural, spontaneous, positive outlook, who see the good side, you know, rather than having a bunch of negative people. So that can contribute. 5 clues to talent, and the first one is yearning. So something you're naturally talented in, not something you learned or got a skill for. Naturally, you'll have a yearning to do it. And what kinds of activities are you naturally drawn to? And some of this is common sense, right? Things you're drawn to will be the things you instinctively know you can perform at, that you can feel good about. Rapid learning is another key clue. So the activities when, even though you haven't had training per se, you start doing something you haven't done before and you're just really good at it, relatively, for your level of training or knowledge. That's a natural talent. Flow. So activities where you know which step to take. Again, maybe you don't have much training, but you just instinctively know what way to go about it. You don't go all over the place, you know what to do next. That's a sign of talent in an area. And glimpses of excellence. And people should always be kind of monitoring for these. When you do something where you say, wow, that was really good there, and it occurs to you, most people couldn't do that as good as I just did that. That's when you're working in your talent zone, not just something you learned. Satisfaction then, what gives you a kick? It's a bit like the yearning. Where do you do something and at the end you're really satisfied, you're fulfilled? Okay? Ideally your role, your job, your life and everything will fit with these, but that's not the way life is often. Often you'll have to do a job where it doesn't fit your talents and you need to be able to manage that. Components of strength. So talent is one we just mentioned. It's extremely important and gives extreme leverage. And that's a naturally occurring thing, as we said. It's innate. Skill, though, is something where you learn how to go through the steps. You mightn't instinctively know, but you learn what to do at every step in a certain type of activity. And therefore you can simulate being talented. Knowledge is very important. So someone who could be an amazing violinist, if they don't research and learn all around it, they'll never be great. They'll just be a good hack in a pub with a fiddle, right? So you need to add knowledge and skill to your natural talents to make them really explode, to do great things. I'll touch on the origins of strengths-based psychology, and there's a massive amount of investment that's gone into this over the last 50 years or so. But here was one example that twigged the people to what was important. So they had 6,000 12, 13-year-olds, I guess, in Nebraska, multiple sites, and they had 3 teaching methods for rapid reading while retaining a certain amount of comprehension. And they had multiple different teachers. And they were trying to see, well, is it the method or is it the teacher that matters more? And what happened was the 3 methods, there was no real difference in performance based on them over, I think it was a 12-month period, so good investment. The teachers certainly showed up as significantly different. Certain teachers were better at teaching this stuff, right? And the average readers improved from 90 words per minute to 150, which is pretty good, right? These methods worked, the teachers worked. But an ad hoc finding, which is an after-the-fact finding looking at the data, showed that the students with very high initial talent got a much bigger multiplier, right? So if the average guys were 90 to 150, what do you think the top guys who were starting around 300 whilst retaining 50% comprehension, what do you think they might have gone to? 600, 1,000? Any thoughts? 1,500, maybe so. And that's what they actually hit. And I actually looked up, this is a published paper, I was surprised, and I looked up the area, and it's actually true. The person who has a natural ability for something, the visual cortex, being able to associate words, being able to link everything together rapidly, natural talent for that can be greatly, greatly magnified with training or with effort. Much more so than if the talent isn't particularly there. So that's really what they figured when they were looking at this kind of data. Imagine you did that in the workplace, you know, in terms of productivity and industry. If you took people who had really high-end talents and you focused them on that and you trained them and educated them, the bang for the buck. And of course what they're thinking is money, right? That's what everything's all about. So the recipe for strength, and I've kind of gone through it, is you need the talent, ideally. Sometimes you won't have a talent in something, you still got to work on it. That's okay. You invest in the talent, your skills, your knowledge base, the tools, and that's what gives you strength. And the strength is to be able to have near perfect performance in something. You know, if someone's got a real strength and they've gone through this process and you see them perform, you will know it because it will be exceptional, right? So that is the goal, to tend towards your talents, invest in them rather than weaknesses, not exclusively, but rather than weaknesses, and try and go for gold, okay? Example here quickly, the command theme, one of the 34 themes. Command means you can confront people, you're comfortable bringing things up at people and pushing ahead. You're not in any way reserved, right? That would obviously be good for a salesman, right? They got to knock on doors, they got to go in and try and push their product, right? So command is a good idea for talent that would benefit them. However, to be successful at selling and to be the top salesman, you need to make it a strength. So the salesman or woman needs to combine that talent with a lot of training and all the tricks, all the manipulative plays, right? A lot of knowledge around the product so they can really sell it well, and then they become really strong at it, okay? The talent alone isn't enough. And I like to see it as the Pareto principle. So to bias your effort, broadly speaking, 75% towards your upper talents, and then you're going to have to spend a certain amount of time on the lesser talents, right? You're going to have to cover yourself in areas you're weak in. That can be a point of failure. But don't spend too much time trying to be what you're not. Not too much time. Okay, stats. Around 15 million have taken it. It is the elephant in the world for this kind of analysis. 20 different languages. Only 1 in 33 million will have your first 5 strengths in order. Now that doesn't mean you're amazingly unique. Other people will be close, but it just shows you, you know, the kind of the uniqueness that you will get from your particular result. Workplaces, and there's a lot of studies done on this, where the managers are very focused on strengths, they celebrate wins, they focus on the positive opportunities, and they tailor people to what they're good at insofar as that is possible. Generally have around a 70% engagement level. And the far end, the bottom quintile, the bottom decile of companies, right? We're obviously in here. Those companies that focus on kind of discipline and you're weak at that, you've got to get better at this, and that's what the reviews are based on, tend to have a lot less engagement. And that's an element of common sense too. Repeating the test, I've been asked a lot over the years, will it vary? Can you be a chameleon and move around with this stuff? Well, they did do a 12-week retest with a large cohort, and they found the chi-squared correlation between the top 5 3 months later and the original top 5 was extremely strong. Now, we won't get into the detail, but for 29 of them it was, and for 5 it wasn't so strong. It is very reproducible because you are answering these questions honestly, hopefully, on what turns you on what you really believe, and those beliefs don't change, you know. Over many years, your top 5 can change substantially, and they've linked that very strongly to, say, getting married and having children, big life changes where you have new relationships, new circles, you learn new things, and you maybe recognize you like certain things more than you thought you did. So big growth, you might change them, but that's a good thing. 10-year survey of 15 million people, 100 countries. They found that people who felt they used their strengths every day was around 33% on average of people. America was 32, I think India was 38, and there are cultural differences. France was 11%, it's pretty low. And they didn't explain it, but maybe it's the socialism. So, it keeps people down perhaps. So you did the StrengthsFinder either in 2011 or some of you guys recently, and the idea is you've got 20 seconds per question maximum, it won't allow you delay, and that's to get an instinctive, honest, correct answer. So here's an obvious one that you couldn't cheat, or that you could cheat if you wanted. Clearly, jump into things versus read all the directions. If you wanted to cheat in a job interview, one of these things, and you knew they wanted a real impulsive kind of creative person, you might bias. But if you do it honestly, you can't sit in the middle. You're very much encouraged to push towards either end. Here's one that's more ambiguous, you know, variety in work versus organised. That's not so easy to work out what they're thinking, okay? But you've got 20 seconds, you answer instinctively, and your genuine attributes and likes and tendencies will come out of this. So it is very reproducible. There's, yeah?
You answered that in the questions.
I think it kind of, it just doesn't work out. That's a good question. So if you answer down the middle for every question, I presume there's a function where it kind of crashes it and has a warning, you know, or we don't know what the hell job you should be doing. you need to go and talk to someone, right? So, but yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. They have got structures within it to compensate, but I'd say that might collapse the algorithm. Okay, so you've got the 34 here, and very unique the ones that you will have. So some celebrity examples that Andrew pulled together, because people might know I'm not exactly into sport and the arts and all that stuff. But these guys basically did focus on their talents. So if you take Tiger Woods, at the age of 2 he was on television, he was doing golf. Right? Now his father was a big influence driving him, I believe, but he's obviously good at it. If he had gone ahead and played golf occasionally each year for the next 20, 30 years, he would have gone nowhere. He would have won some money in bets. Right? But what he did was he took that talent and he grew it, and we all know what happened. Similarly, McGregor, he was a plumber, and probably a good plumber too, and he gave that up because he saw that what his talent was in this mixed martial arts. He also knew instinctively he had a talent for interaction or maybe media, right? Which he has, and he went for it, and as a result, we see what happens. And then Natalie Portman apparently was pushed to be a model, knew she had acting ability, knew that's where she wanted to go, and pursued that alternatively, and I'm sure did a lot better as a result. So they're just kind of celebrity examples. So we get to the possibly fun bit for some, and of course our management team is talented. I mean, that's bloody obvious, right? But we might try and discern or work out between them who's who. So I go through, and person A has adaptability, and that means they'll go with the flow, tendency towards cool, calm, collected, not like impulsive. Developer means the person takes pleasure in getting incremental improvements in people's capability across many things, and there's another one we'll get into in a minute, slightly different. Responsibility is, you know, honour, loyalty, honesty, and follow through. You know, someone who, not the person who says, yeah, I'll do that, and they kind of don't get to it, right? Includer brings people in, inclusive, recognises when people are not maybe included in a group, is thinking, you know, the hardware is scanning for that, naturally, it's natural talent. And ideation, likes ideas, likes to put together different pieces, look at possibilities. Okay, that's person A. Anyone want to take initial guesses on that, or will we go through them all? Go through them all. Try and keep that in your mind. Person B, arranger up top. Now, arranger means organize resources, plans, find the best optimized use of multiple things. Arrange them with a view to optimizing. Individualization I find interesting, and that's knowing how each person ticks. Interested how each individual functions, right? So very aware of individual differences and can exploit those. Achiever is must get something done every day. You get to the end of a Saturday and you haven't actually done any particular thing and it drives you crazy. That's an achiever person. Maximizer, rather than developer, a maximizer looks for the special talent, the exceptional talent. Maximizers are drawn to someone who, I know that person's amazing at that and I want to put them on this project. So it's a sense playing favourites rather than broadly developing everyone. And context is knowing the past and how that pertains to the present, having a sense of what we've done before and how that could help us today. Okay? Now, I'm probably taking a little long, I'm going to speed up. C is responsibility, which is what it says, basically. A strong sense of loyalty and following through. Harmony is a consensus person, will draw together a difficult group. That there are some people who will not have consensus and they will be very dominant, like command team. Actually, command isn't in any of our managers, so interesting. Relator, again, what it sounds like, very good at relating with people and team building and all that kind of stuff. Analytical means, what it says also, analysing and taking data in order to make decisions, taking in all the data. And deliberative is, a deliberative person will structure, will read the manual before they go and actually, try and play with the control. Structured and organised and wanting all the pieces. So you can see the common themes here amongst this guy. E is achiever first, so wants to get it done, that's an action, needs to be done, right? Maximizer, an element of playing favourites, right? So picking the person they know is good at that stuff and making sure they're on that project that really needs it. Not so worried about getting everyone all gets to do what they want, okay? Responsibility, loyalty, follow through. Arranger, very organised, has everything documented, all the plans laid out, all the resources identified. You won't get away with not doing an action item with this person. It will not be forgotten. It will come up in your one-on-one without fail. So, discipline. Oh, very structured. Again, very similar themes. Very structured, laid out, not stuff kind of on the fly, seat of the pants. No, not with E. And here we have finally connectedness, responsibility, intellection, developer, and restorative. And you might notice here, this is a little relatively unique compared to some of these where there's overlap. So connectedness, very interested in the connectedness between people and things. An element of a philosophical nature here. Responsibility for sure, the loyalty and follow through. Intellection, and again, this is what it says. Likes concepts, likes thinking through ideas. Philosophical type person. Developer, develops everyone, likes to see improvements across the board, not maybe so much playing favourites. And restorative, again, this is a bit like harmony. So it's bringing everything together and solving problems by looking at all the aspects. Not necessarily technical problems, but more in a people sense. So, have everyone formed their opinion on who's who? We'll have to guess. I'll show them one by one. Who do we think A is? A balanced person.
It's either Tom or Lorraine, I would guess.
Tom or Lorraine, very good. That's correct. Lorraine? There you are. So this stuff makes sense. Number 2 then was an arranger and organizer, will play favourites, thoughtful, achiever as well, follow through, very strong, needs to get something done every day, and a sense of context in the past. So think, someone who does hark back to how we did things before and incorporates them. Hey! Very good. This is quite good. I don't know what way this will go. Now, responsibility, harmony, relating with people, but also analytical and deliberative and wanting things where they are, but maybe not as strong as the next person for that stuff. So, there you are. You guys go work for Gallup. Okay, now the last two I'm going to show together. And they're somewhat contrasting in style. Yeah. So
you left the letter D out of that, so who you left out.
that's because, and that's a good spot there. So you'd be input, spot and good. Basically, I had a lot more I-8, and I knew it wasn't practical in the time. So that's an editing error. Okay, so very good. Now, how about the rest of us? And I'll just check on time. I don't have a.
Sorry, we're half past.
Good, excellent. So myself and Andrew will just have a few words on ours, seeing as we're giving this thing. So for me, I have individualization up top. And when I first saw these, I kind of didn't entirely agree years ago. And then when I kind of contemplated them, I realized that they were valid, which they should be if you answer honestly. So individualization is being interested in how people tick, basically. What are the drivers and the mechanisms between each individual? What drives them? What are they interested in? Is that can I find value from that? So that's one. Maybe useful for a manager, I don't know. You guys be the judge. I'm out of that game now. Maximizer. Again, maximizer, and I mentioned it earlier, is tending to really value exceptional talent when you see it. So there is a slight danger of playing favourites, but you know, you got to say if you got a big issue, massive escalation, and you know you need that person and that person, not just because you're favoritist, because you know that they can do stuff that other people can't, and we might need it. Okay, and then a couple others. Activator is. Well, actually, communication is probably worth mentioning because that one, surprisingly, doesn't come up very often. It didn't come up earlier, and even in our whole database of everyone in the department, it doesn't come up that often. And that's not necessarily always sending the right email. It's more, it's being articulate, verbose, being able to paint pictures with words, you know, convey ideas, that kind of thing. So, you be the judge again. So, I could certainly talk too. Andrew, whereabouts are you? You might mention a couple of yours, yeah.
I don't know, I guess it's all about personal interpretation of these stuff, right? So what really resonates with me, just double check I've got it, is the futuristic one. So like, my missus calls me an eternal dreamer. Like, so for like, even professionally and personally, I'm always kind of striving towards a medium-term goal or what I want. But what I was really delighted to see was focus. So focus is, and I can't regurgitate what the PDF says, but what it says is that someone can dream all they want really, but you have to have the focus and the ability to steer that, to make decisions to make that dream happen. So that really resonated with me. And then the third one, I suppose, is learner. I suppose I spent a lot of time in college learning what I really like doing, and I continue to like that same topic, and just want to do that all the time. So learning what I really like is what's, I suppose, maximizer kind of feeds into that as well. That's what.
Very much. And focus. And excellent, thanks, Andrew. And the focus there is a good example. If you need people with focus, if you have a lot of futuristic or more kind of ideas people, because you need certain people on the team who will try and consolidate, you know, go from expansion down to contraction down to actual practical ideas to take forward. And there's millions of examples of what I just said. Complementariness in teams is important. Great, thanks, Andrew. So we now have the piece where I kind of flagged to some people I might call you out, and I randomly took strengths from the top 5, and here's the first cluster of people, and some couldn't make it today in fairness, so maybe we just start from the top. Is Paul here? Oh, Paul, very good.
Analytical number 2, so actually resonate quite well. So from a young age at school, there's always passion and everything. On the negative side, communication is one of my weaker sides of things, which actually makes that skill a bit frustrating at times. So, for example, in my college years, doing my postgrad, you're kind of in an environment where people think the same as you, so you're in like almost an echo chamber. So the communication issue wasn't as bad
which they generally will be. And that one, yeah, that's an example though, if communication isn't your instinctive talent, it's certainly one worth working on. So again, we want to keep stressing, it's not you run after your strengths and ignore things, because you could get a substantial boost in working on communication. That's plenty to enable all of your other big talents. So it's a great example. Thanks, Paul. Niamh, here, an achiever.
I'm an achiever.
It's quite obvious, right? Come on.
When I looked at this, I didn't know how to write it, because I think the way I view it is, I don't really care if I'm the best at something. So say I wouldn't care if everyone else was better than me, as long as I felt like I was doing my best. So it would really bother me if I did something and I kind of thought that was kind of half-assed. And I think that's the achiever.
Yes.
And then like one thing that I was reading through it, and then it kind of really resonated when you said it as well, is that say when I'm really busy, like in my personal life, I'm really, really busy and I'm dying for like a lazy Saturday. Like I'm thinking of due day, I have a lazy Saturday. And by that evening I feel really disgruntled. And I think it's because I got nothing done with that day. And even though I was dying for it, I kind of felt I deserved it.
Yeah.
I don't never feel good after it, so then I usually have to go off and do something.
Yeah, you lose the satisfaction.
Yeah.
And again, I'm the same there. It's not that you're a big high achiever or anything. It's just the nature of you. And on a Saturday, if I haven't replaced a wheel bearing or done any single thing, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. Once you've got something done that day that you know you've done something and ticked it off and it's good. Doesn't have to be, that's it. It can be a small thing. But many people have achiever low and they're happy to wander through that duvet day, do bugger all, and at the end of the night they have their bottle of wine and they slap themselves in the back. I can't do that without the wheel bearing or the brake cable or whatever been done. Okay? Thanks, Dave. Who we got? We got Francis, discipline. You want to spank us?
4 on the list. I had achiever and I can relate to the achiever thing. And even if it's just one small thing that you tick off, I'm getting up early and getting something done with discipline. So, yeah, quite structured. Not in everything, but it would come sort of natural to me. I'd like to put structure in terms of programs, etc., managing costs and stuff like that. So there's a certain amount of routine that you play there. But with Gallup, you think about the situation you're put in. Everybody will be put in certain situations. They will naturally work on their top 5, but there will be situations where people, their top 5 won't come, and you don't have them. You may struggle on the things, and you'll have to spend extra hours doing them in a particular role or job. And sometimes that happens, and it depends on your top 5. You might reach out to other people and pull them in to help you, or you'll struggle on yourself if you're, one of the other items. But that discipline thing is, I suppose, if people can relate to me being disciplined or not. But I suppose part of my role right now is managing costs and management dashboards and stuff like that. Yeah.
And that certainly requires discipline. And it's funny, I randomly kind of pulled these, but XLP, and other people have mentioned it, when I was co-leading in the sense XLP with yourself, that big program, Francis brought all the structure and the discipline that I wouldn't really. But then if something blew up and I was a bit crazy, maybe some big issue, and I tend to dive into that. So there's this great complementariness between strengths, which really worked out. And no one mentioned the other thing, the war. Very good. And likewise though, and just a quick one, I have discipline relatively low. I don't like structuring out stuff, though if I'm doing something I really like, I will do it. No problem. But in general, I procrastinate. So I bring in people who are good planners, structures with me, and there's an efficiency there. Instead of me procrastinating, grab someone for 20 minutes, cup of coffee, sounding board, get through stuff faster. It's efficient. It's good for the business, good for everyone. Kevin can't make it today because he is doing extraordinary things with Cormac in the IP world. Claire, we'll do yourself.
I suppose I first did this Gallup Strengthsfinder when I just joined the company. I was only here a month or 2, and I'll be honest, I didn't really think much of it, and I haven't probably thought much of it over the last 5 years until you brought this up again.
Sorry.
But then I suppose the whole point of it was it's meant to find your strengths and what you like doing. So when I thought about a ranger and kind of how that would link to me, I suppose when I look at kind of, you know, what I do here, the thing I like the most is working with the worldwide teams. You know, making sure we're pulling together the bigger test plans, you know, the schedules around it, and if an issue rises, you know, making sure I'm pulling the right people in and then getting the actions all out from that. And so it's the thing I like the most about my job. So obviously a ranger does probably suit me, and my new mentor is going to be Andrew Kay.
Oh, right. Excellent. Like-minded individual, yeah. But that's true. Some people actually, when they get their 5, there was a story, I think it was Carol told at a face-to-face during the summer, we did an exercise a little like this, and there was a person on the West Coast who got their 5 and just did not agree with them, did not like them. Now the irony is, you create the 5 because you answer what you like. They can't be wrong, in a sense. But this person didn't like the 5, and the irony pointed out to them was that one of them, I forget the one in the top 5, was someone who questions things and does not accept things and needs to get more data. And the person wanted to redo it. They said, I want to redo it, I'm not happy. So, you know, they're broadly pretty good, and of all the tools, I think this is probably the best of all of these psycho tools.
Ivor, just on that, if you keep redoing that over time, how repeatable is it?
Oh yeah, I touched on that earlier. So basically, in a nominal period of time, long enough to forget what you said, but not long enough to change as a person. 3 months, they did big studies, and they saw extreme correlation between 29 of the 34 in the top 5. And even the 5 that were a little noisier, they always came up in the top 10. So there are exceptions. If years go by, you get married, you change your complete career, you may learn new things about what you like, and you may answer a bit differently. But that's entirely appropriate, because the new result will be the new you. So you should still be cognizant or mindful of what it says. Yeah. Okay, John Oliver. Whoa.
I'm not sure where this sits in the top 5. It's probably...
Oh, I was going to change these. Sorry, yeah. Pick any of them anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think that one in general, I would be able to relate to certain, like an interest in membership and bringing
Yes.
people, making sure they can contribute to the highest degree.
Yeah.
My top one was harmony, I think, which again sounds a bit weird to some people.
Sounds harmonious.
I mean, when I thought about it, definitely engaging with worldwide teams, and particularly over the phone, I'd be very conflict averse.
Yes.
And trying to bring everybody up together. I think it's very difficult to bring in some conflict when you're not talking to somebody face to face. Ironically, as I think through the harmony one, I think the more I get to know people, the less harmonious I am.
That's okay
people
too.
I know and like the best, I have to blind to their face. So if that happens, you'll know that you're in a good place.
Oh, I can resonate with that. I can resonate. And command then was probably naturally on the lower end, because it doesn't mean you're a commander. It's just the opposite of that. It's confronting and being very comfortable doing that. Okay, very good. And if someone could just keep an eye on time, this has to fill. We're 42. So maybe we'll take Shane or Jared. Jared can't make it, so we'll take Shane anyway.
So adaptability, I suppose the main connection with that is flexibility. So I'm very open to change. I like seeing new things, dynamic environments. I think the PDF said something along the lines of you understand the world as an interactive and dynamic place. You don't necessarily have, or you don't necessarily not have plans, but you're open to various options on that plan. So I think that is very much in line with myself. I kind of do assess things as I go on. I'm very open to change. To say that people with adaptability skills or strengths are comfortable in high pressure environments, and I certainly would agree with that. I think I kind of get my most, it's basically a strength, but it's also really a reflection of what you enjoy doing. And I think like in a high pressure environment where you need to make decisions, you need to see change happening at a rapid pace. And that's very much what I kind of get a kick out of. I suppose then as well, even maybe in my academic studies, I a mechanical engineering background, then I went and studied electronic engineering additionally. As that kind of changed, very much another one of my strengths was a learner. I think the two of them overlap a lot, and that I like learning new things in new ways all the time, kind of progressing, developing myself.
Yeah, true, and definitely that one, I had it down somewhere in the 10, but like I don't mind if a project gets cancelled and suddenly everything's changed around, and some people do. You notice people who are really disappointed and really attached to things and don't want it all to get rejuggled. It's a very useful trait to have. We might finish with Brendan, or probably, because I have a couple of minutes left of slides. Brendan.
Yeah, ideation was my top one. I think it sort of fits with me well. I was always drawn to sort of strange concepts and making links between them. I think my favourite subject in secondary school was physics, but I'm also quite lazy. So I focused on the aspect of which I was best at physics, that was electronics. And I went into electronics at a lower level and went through that. And that fits well with sort of what I'm doing now. I have a good background in that, and it helps. And I'm pretty good at making the connections between problems. It helps with problem solving. It helps in the security stuff that I do to generate new stuff, new features and stuff like that. So having that sort of mind helps a lot. It also helps that I'm lazy, because it makes me more efficient at doing stuff. So finding quicker ways to do things sort of backs up my laziness.
It supports you. I don't think there's up to 34 laziness one.
I saw like top 10, there was no discipline, achiever, or any of that kind of stuff was in there. I am not organised, I have no sort of drive to do any of that stuff. I'm a bit of a scatterbrain.
It's a good time of year to emphasise all that. Negative aspects. Not.
I just don't, so it doesn't matter.
But that's... I'm sorry, some of it.
No, I just say Brendan realises this is being recorded.
Oh yeah. So actually, the end of your conversation, just play back this segment and you're done. But no, it is. There is something in that, all right. If you play to your strengths, you can kind of get away to a point, or accommodate or compensate for lesser strengths. If it works out for you, and if your job can utilise your strengths, people will acknowledge you for doing a great job in the aspects of where you perform best. And you won't have to go around, dredging through your weaknesses and messing around with them. That's an ideal, but it doesn't always happen. We'll take one more random from this, and that's it. Patrick? Oh, we better move. Okay, very good. Thank you, timekeepers. Okie doke. So, a little bit of a fox here, fair and balanced. Let's look at the other side. Begrudgers, I think slightly. There's some kind of big wheel psychology guys who don't agree with Gallup, and I sense a slight bit of, begrudgery. But anyway, they do make fair points. Strengths only is not viable, okay? And you'll notice I've said several times, it's not just focus on your strengths, because there are dangers. Sometimes your 5 strengths won't tie up well with your job, and if you focus them all you want, you're not going to really succeed that much. You could even be annoying. Strengths can become weaknesses. So if people really go too far all out naively and just focus on their strengths, right, they can become a real pain in the ass. Overdone strengths can be derailers, and can disrupt teams. And weaknesses matter, which we acknowledged in fairness. Your weaknesses can really hold you back and cause you to somewhat fail, even when you are applying your strengths. So you can't ignore them. So Pareto principle. And they're fair points, but I think they're protesting too much, because these guys tend to make it look like Gallup say, it's just your strengths. Don't look at your weaknesses, which is not really true. They use straw man arguments. That's great. Thanks a lot for that, John. Excellent. So, just a couple of final words. The Gallup, the survey you did, all the resources are there online. You can access it with your code, and there's a huge amount of support for how to handle your weaknesses in the way we've been talking, John's been talking about, manage them, and also, hopefully, with the Pareto principle, focus a little more towards your strengths to achieve great things for yourself and for others. Okay, and it's going to end like a French film, abruptly.